Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Predaplant deck profile. So this deck is a really cool deck that uses plant monsters to be able to fusion summon into some crazy awesome fusion monsters. This deck is all about fusion summoning and is probably one of the coolest fusion based archetypes outside of Pfeiffer and Falafel, being an awesome deck that came from Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. So, since this deck actually uses Starving Venom Fusion Dragon as its main focus, I want you guys to do something a little bit different in this video. Comment down below what your favorite of the Dimension Dragons are, between Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, Clearwing Synchro Dragon, and Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Now, don't count Zark as one because that is actually a mixture of all four. But Zark is kind of like the best one, being honest with you guys. So, anyways, guys, let's get straight on this. Before we do, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have all sorts of rewards for you guys, like getting your name description for every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, or even getting a quest deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hand. So without further ado guys, let's get straight on in this. And by the way, my favorite of all of the dragons is actually Dark Rebellion, just saying. So without further ado, let's get into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Predaplant Ortho Scorpio. Wow, that actually glows on camera. That's really cool. Sometimes I just have to take a moment and be like, wow, that looks cool. So what this card does is it's probably the main starter of the deck that you want to get a hold of. And what this card does is if this card is normal or special summon, you get to send one monster from your hand to the graveyard to special summon another Predaplant monster from your deck, which is a really cool effect just to be able to instantly get you a Predaplant monster from the deck. Usually you're going to be using it to summon Darling Cobra, which is a really good card that searches a fusion spell, which we'll get into in just a minute, but it's a really awesome card just as a starter card. We then play 3 of the next Predaplant monster, which is a really cool card too, because when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand, and after damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can destroy that opponent's monster, and if this card is destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, which is not that big of a deal by a card effect, you can add a Predaplant or a Predacard from your deck to your hand, which is pretty easy to get those cards out of your deck in this deck, because this deck actually searches those cards quite frequently. We then play 2 copies of Sundew. Sundew actually bumped down to 2 in this deck because Sundew is basically walking polymerization, that you can fusion summon a fusion monster using another dark monster on the field, which is pretty cool because monsters with Predacounters are treated as dark monsters. And then during your main phase, you can fusion summon 1 dark fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters on the field, and they cannot be used, or monsters from the hand and or monsters with Predacounters on them that your opponent controls. So if my opponent controls any monsters with a Predacounter, I can just use them as a material to summon like Starving Venom Fusion Dragon or another monster that requires a dark monster in the extra deck, which is pretty cool. We then play a single copy of Predaplant Spino. Spino is pretty cool because Spino, when it's normal summon, you can target a monster on the field and put a Predacounter on that card. And if this card battles an opponent's monster with a level lower than it, you can special summon a Predaplant monster from your deck, which is the big, really cool effect of this card, and it is an 1800 beat stick as well. We then play a single copy of Darling Cobra. You're usually not going to draw into this card because you don't play really any draw cards in the deck, to be honest. You play a lot of search cards, but you don't play a lot of cards that draw, so if you don't hard draw this card, it's not that big of a deal. It's a little bit of a brick, but you have to play it because it's one of the best Predaplant cards in the entire deck. Because if you special summon it off your copy of Ortho Scorpio, or you special summon it off of a Predaplant monster's effect, you get to add a polymerization or a fusion spell from your deck to your hand, which is a really, really good effect. We then play a single copy of Predaplant Hydra. Predaplant Hydra is a good card because you can special summon this card from your hand by attributing 1 monster opponent on the field. Usually going to be your opponent's that has a Predacounter on it, which is the really good effect of this card. We then play a single copy of Predaplant Ogre. Predaplant Ogre is a really good card because you can special summon this card from your hand by attributing an opponent's monster with a Predacounter on it, and this card is sent from the field to the graveyard. You can place a Predacounter on each face-up monster your opponent controls, and if you do, any monster that has Predacounters on it that's level 2 or higher becomes level 1, and that has a Predacounter on it, which is the big thing about Predacounters. They make all the monsters that have them on them become level 1, which can be kind of neat because it hurts like Xyz and Synchros, which is what the deck kind of focuses on. Which is kind of neat. It doesn't touch pendulums, but it does kind of affect Synchros and Xyz. We then play a single copy of the Predaplant Pterodactyl. I just call it Pterodactyl at this point. This name is not even going to... I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. You do it. What this card does is if your opponent controls a monster with a Predacounter, you can special summon this card from your hand instantly. And if this card is in its owner's possession, is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, then you can target 1 Dark Dragon or a Dark plant monster in your graveyard except another copy of itself and special summon it, which is a really good effect just to be able to get you an additional 2400 beat stick on your side of the field, 2400 body on your side of the field that you can use as a material for a fusion summon, and it's just an overall really good card as well. We then play 3 copies of Lone Fire Blossom, because Lone Fire Blossom is a really good card in the deck because it helps you essentially play 6 of every single Predaplant in the entire deck, or 3 extra copies of every single Predaplant in the entire deck, because they're all like particularly plant monsters, and this card says, hey, special summon any plant from the deck. And then we play 2 copies of Edgeimp Chain. Now, Edgeimp Chain is kind of a neat card in this deck because when this card declares an attack, you get to add a Edgeimp Chain from your deck to your hand. And if this card is sent from your hand or field to the graveyard, you get to add a Forever card from your deck to your hand, which is always going to be Forever Patchwork, which is the really cool thing about this deck, is you actually play Forever cards, which was played by Sora in the actual Arc 5 anime, where this was played by another character. We then play a single copy of Edgeimp Sabers, which kind of goes with the theme. It helps out a lot because it can kind of recur itself back onto the field really easily by you putting a card from your hand back on top of your deck, which helps out a lot in this deck to be able to just keep rolling with your plays. Then we play 2 of Yugioh, no, not Yugioh's, oh goodness, what's his name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was the other guy, Yugioh. He plays Phantom Knight. So we are playing 2 Phantom Knights in this deck, which is a single copy of Boots and a single copy of Ancient Cloak. So this card is really good in the deck too, because they're dark monsters, and you can summon Rusty Bardiche really easily in this deck. So using this in the deck helps a lot because they're basically searchers from the graveyard. You banish them to either search a Phantom Knight spell or trap or the Phantom Knight card from your deck to your hand, which is a really, really good effect to be able to just search those cards from the deck really fast, like Fog Blade and stuff like that. It gives the deck a little bit more of a negation aspect, which helps out a lot. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom to round out the monsters, because Ash Blossom helps out the deck a lot to be able to stop your opponent from doing all sorts of stuff. So they pretty much cannot touch their deck at all, to either add cards from their deck to the hand, special summon from the deck, or send cards from the deck to the graveyard. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells, because the spells is where this deck really excels because it is fusions. So for the spells, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Super Polymerization. So this card is one of the best cards in the entire deck. You can use this very, very easily in the deck to be able to fusion summon into a bunch, and I mean a bunch of different fusion monsters, using monsters your opponent controls, like your copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, the other Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon. You can go into Chimera, you can go into, there's just like endless amounts of extra deck monsters that you can use this card to go into by using your opponent's cards to go into it. And this card is a speed spell 4 that cannot be reacted to. They just lose the monsters, which is pretty cool. Play a single copy of Instant Fusion because it is a fusion spell and can be searched in the deck really easily. 1 copy of Ultra Polymerization. Ultra Polymerization is a really neat card in this deck because it has the ability that you pay 2,000 life points, and then once you pay your 2,000 life points, you get to use 2 monsters you control as fusion material, and neither player can activate cards and effects. So this is also a speed spell for Polymerization. And then you get to special summon the 2 monsters back that you use to fusion summon the monster. So it's basically like if you meet the requirements, you just special summon a fusion monster from your extra deck, which is kind of neat. We then play 2 copies of Polymerization. You just need the 2 copies of Polymerization. You don't need 3 because it's searchable in the deck so easy. And once you fusion summon twice in this deck, you're probably gonna win. We then play a single copy of Predapruning. Predapruning is pretty good because after this card is activated, you get to target a Predaplant in your graveyard and special summon it and then equip this card to it. We play a single copy of Predaponics. Predaponics is pretty cool too because once per turn, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Predaplant monster from your hand or graveyard, but it has its effects negated, which is not that big of a deal. You just get to special summon a bunch of Predaplants from the grave. We then play 3 copies of Predapractice. Predapractice is pretty cool because you get to special summon a Predaplant monster from your hand. Then you get to add a Preda card from your deck to your hand, which is the big effect of this card that you're going to be using all the time. But for the rest of the return, after this card resolves, you can special summon monsters from the extra deck, except for fusion monsters, which it is not that bad, and it's not that big of a deal, because once you establish your field, you can always use this last to throw a Predaplant monster on your side of the field really quickly, because it says for the rest of the turn after this card resolves. So you can link summon before it resolves, which is kind of cool. We then play 3 copies of Forever Patchwork for the last 3 cards in the deck, or the last 3 cards in the spell lineup, because it lets you add an Edgeimp and a Polymerization. So it's essentially a +1 that can be searched off of your copy of Chain, which is super helpful for this deck to be able to just add Polymerization from your deck to your hand. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 traps, and then as a single copy of the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigadine, and we're going to be playing 2 copies of the Phantom Knights of Fogblade, or Phantom Knights Fogblade. Basically, this is Fiendish Chain, and it makes it so the monster can't attack or be attacked. And then Shade Brigadine basically says, hey, you can special summon me as a level 4 monster on your side of the field, which is pretty good as well. That's a dark monster to use as link material or to use as anything that you want in this entire deck, which is kind of neat. I like that ability a lot. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. This card is absolutely insane. It's still a really good card as a boss monster. It can get really big on your side of the field and has some really insane effects. That if this card is Fusion Summon, you can make this card gain attack equal to 1 special summon monster your opponent controls until the end of the turn. And then once per turn, you can target 1 level 5 or higher monster your opponent controls until the end of the turn. This card's name becomes that monster's original name and replace this card's effect with that monster's original effect. And if this card was Fusion Summon card is destroyed, then you can destroy all special summon monsters your opponent controls. This card has literally no drawbacks except that you have to use 2 dark monsters on your side of the field, or 2 dark monsters on the field to Fusion Summon this card. It is probably arguably one of the most splashable like fusion monsters in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh, especially being the best super poly target in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh, and is really cool to actually make a deck based around it. We then play a single copy of Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon. Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon is the evolved form of Starving Venom that has the ability that you get to use a Predaplant monster and a 1 dark monster whose original level is 8 or higher, which is suggested pretty much as you're going to use Starving Venom. It has a pretty neat effect that also must be Fusion Summoned, and then once per turn you can target 1 face-up card on the field, or 1 face-up monster on the field until the end of the turn, change its attack to 0, and then also that target has its effects negated, and if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, destroy as many monsters on the field as possible. Then you can manage a level 8 or higher dark monster in the graveyard and special summon this card back from the graveyard, which is probably going to be Starving Venom that you're going to be banishing. 2 copies of Chimera Rafflesia. Chimera Rafflesia is just a 2 of in this deck. It takes 1 Predaplant monster and a dark monster to Fusion Summon this card, and then once per turn, you can target 1 card on the field that has level less than or equal to this card and banish it. And then when this card attacks is declared involving this card and an opponent's face-up monster, you can activate the effect to make this card, or make the opponent's monster lose 1,000 attack. And if it does, this card gains 1,000 attack, so it puts a gap of about 2,000 in between a monster and this, which is pretty cool. It also has an added effect that once per turn during the next standby phase after this card was sent to the graveyard, you can add a polymerization spell card or a fusion spell from your deck to your hand. So this card not only replaces itself with another fusion spell, it's a big beat stick, and it can banish a card on the field. It's a really, really good boss monster. We then play 1 copy of Predaplant Dragostapelia. Dragostapelia lets you once per turn quick effect target a face-up monster your opponent controls and place a Preda counter on it, and its level, if it's level 2 or higher, it becomes level 1 as long as the Preda counter is on the field. And then you also has the added effect that you negate the effect of all face-up monster your opponent controls that have Preda counters on it, which is a good effect. 1 copy of the Predaplant that takes 3 fusion monsters, or 3 dark monsters on the field to fusion summon into it. Has a really good effect that when your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck while you control the fusion summon card, quick effect, you can negate the summon, and if you do, destroy that. And if your opponent controls a monster with a Preda counter on it, you can special summon this card from your graveyard in defense position, so this card is really hard to out. 1 copy of Mud Dragon of the Swamp because it is an additional super poly target in the deck, and 1 copy of Millenniumize Restrict because it is our copy of instant fusion target, which is pretty helpful. 1 copy of the Phantom Knights of Breaksword because Breaksword, you can make it really easy with 2 level 3s in this deck, and it gets you a pop on the field, which is kind of nice. 1 copy of Bardige because Bardige is really good in the deck too because it's really easy to summon. It gets you essentially 2 negations on your side of the field because you get 2 Fog Blades out of this, which is kind of nice. 1 copy of Aroma Seraphy Jasmine. Jasmine is really good in the deck too because it helps you out a lot by adding plants from your deck to your hand. 1 copy of Cross Sheep because it's a fusion deck and this card is ridiculous in any fusion deck. Predaplant Verte Anaconda. Anaconda is really good in the deck too because you can use any of your polymerization fusion spells from the deck using this card by paying 2,000. And then a single copy of Linkuriboh because Linkuriboh can be used with a lot of the level 1s in the deck or Millenniumize Restrict to summon it. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a really cool deck to play around with. It's probably one of my favorite fusion-based decks outside of like Dark Magician, but with the main focus actually being fusion summoning. This and probably Fluffles are probably my favorite like fusion-based archetype in the entire game. I really like playing around with this, and I hope I can do test hands of this one very soon. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have all those awesome rewards, you guys. And we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.